then when you look out into the world and you see everyone's calling you crazy and everyone's telling you you're insane and you've joined a cult and, not just people at a distance, but like even friends that were close to me, all the smart money, quote unquote, people that I knew were just telling me how big of a joke this thing was, a scam. We spoke at a family office symposium. This is back in 2017 or 18. Basically pitching Bitcoin, saying like, "Oh, this is the absolute best investment opportunity," And they're literally laughing us out of the room by the end of this thing. These, smart money family office guys. The first question I think was, "What's the difference between Bitcoin and a tulip?" And and then kind of sneaker into his friends, and obviously alluding to tulip mania. And so we've come so far from that. That world is a distant memory at this point. And now you go to the Bitcoin conference and you have, politicians, mainstream politicians talking about Bitcoin and their Bitcoin strategy. And it's just been head spinning, to say the least. And so, why am I excited? I think we've been so deeply confirmed in our convictions over the past, we being like Bitcoiners, broadly speaking, have been so deeply confirmed and validated in our convictions for 9 years straight. Obviously price is a major signal. I got this, the only tattoo that I have is a Bitcoin tattoo under my right arm here. I got this in the November 2018 bear market. Bitcoin was trading somewhere around $3,800, I think. And that was, my friends were really concerned about me at that point. Like, this thing's going to zero, right? Why did you get a tattoo? Like, do we need to get you some help? And, Bitcoin is trading at whatever it's trading at, $90,000 today. That's 8 years. 8 years, it's done, a 25 or 30x. Obviously, there's a lot of validation there from the market. All of the consequences of money printing, like, hey, you're screaming at people that the state is a scam and central banking is a scam, and it drives in price inflation and whatnot. And then people are like, yeah, right, everything's fine. U.S. dollar works great. And then we go through COVID. You see the U.S. print $8 trillion, or whatever they did with the money supply, 40 to 80% increase depending on how you count it, and all of the attendant price inflation that came with it. And so I think COVID in many ways kind of accelerated people's awakening to the reality that we do live in a matrix of sorts. That term's even used, right? Obviously we use the orange pilling metaphor to describe the Bitcoin epiphany, but we also, a lot of people that aren't even into Bitcoin refer to the matrix, like all of the conspiracy theories and state scams that are going on. People were awakened during COVID. So why am I excited? I mean, price validation, people waking up, and just the digital age in general, right? We're getting more and more tools that let individuals self-organize in ways that serve their best interest. And we have less and less dependence on top-down authoritarian structures.
100%. I love that, because like it really, from someone that has been in such a longer time in Bitcoin, it kind of builds that picture that we Bitcoiners sometimes have a memory of like 5 to 10 weeks, and we're like, the last 10 weeks, if they have been down, we're like struggling, and if the last 10 weeks is up, we're like, oh, like really like cheering on, and like it's all great. But we have to remember that the narrative that Bitcoin is bad for the environment, is a speculative asset that could every time go to zero, it's kind of gone now. I no longer hear that. It's like the Bitcoin is kind of like Bitcoin going to zero or Bitcoin dying. This narrative kind of died.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, I don't think there are any intelligent counter arguments to Bitcoin, and if you spend a few more years here, I think you'll get less sensitive to the price. Like, it's fine. Whatever it does, I'm either buying more or I'm richer, and it's you reach kind of a nirvana state with it at some point.
Yeah, the thesis still stands. Like, I wake up every day and I think to myself, is my worldview the same as it was yesterday? And then, yeah, I'm going to continue on with my strategy. Hold the Bitcoin, go to the marketplace, produce, save the surplus in Bitcoin. It's pretty simple. And I'm really excited about Bitcoin because it's a solution to so many obvious problems in the world. And I'm really looking forward to more people waking up to that. And I've kind of even let go of that a little bit because the game theory says that this is the solution for the individual as well as the collective. And so that keeps me quite pumped.
I want to talk more about wisdom and intelligence and meaning today in the podcast. I think most of the audience here, and I think especially we three also know what Bitcoin is, what Bitcoin does in the long run. And I'm really interested, especially with you both, you so deep into Bitcoin, what wisdom you kind of got out of that, or what wisdom you kind of got out of that because Bitcoin enabled those thoughts maybe in the head.
Yeah, well, wisdom's a very interesting word. And I guess I would start by saying I don't consider myself to be a wise person, but I do think it is very useful to try and cultivate wisdom, which you could also say just cultivate virtue. Wisdom has a lot to do with knowing what you don't know or knowing what you cannot know, which may sound paradoxical, but this is a thing, I think it's an experience many people have going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, is that you come to realize the limitations of knowledge itself, things that can be articulated, things that cannot be articulated, people's motivations for articulating things in different ways. I've arrived at a number of these heuristics that I think are very useful for decomplexifying the world. One is that no man can be trusted to talk anything other than his own book, which basically means we're all speaking from our incentives all the time, right? You know, you talk to a guy that, I was talking to a guy the other day, I won't get into the details, but they basically run a regulated clinic of sorts. So of course he was fear-mongering about regulations and how you need to pay close attention to them and whatnot. And then you talk to the same guy that runs a non-regulated clinic and he has all the opposite kind of perspectives. And it's like, well, that's no coincidence. I mean, you guys are both paid to have those perspectives. And the interesting thing about Bitcoin, because obviously someone could retort that, oh, well, you're doing the same thing. You're just talking your own book. You love Bitcoin. You hold a lot of Bitcoin, so you're evangelizing Bitcoin. Yes, you're absolutely correct. We are, I am, we are. But the difference with Bitcoin is that it is a permanently open book. You can't hide anything. There's no asymmetries. It's the ultimate level playing field, whatever metaphor you want to use here. It's a book that cannot be corrupted, manipulated, distorted. So that's why we do evangelize for it, but it's like evangelizing for, you know, the laws of physics or zero-based mathematics. It's like it's something that benefits everyone, all the network participants that use it. And then, so what's another one here? Like, this was actually really useful to me during the pandemic. My brother, he's a super smart guy. He's got a master's degree in biomolecular chemical biology. Whatever. He was very convinced during the pandemic that he had read all the research and all the science, and the vaccine was just the very smart thing to do. I read none of that shit. I read no science, no biology. I don't have a degree like him. All I needed to know, and I learned this through the Bitcoin rabbit hole, was that if the product is free, then you are the product. Simple as that. So when I saw guys, you know, politicians, other spokespeople, celebrities, influencers, whatever on TV, you know, really encouraging people to get the jab, giving away donuts and Happy Meals, and they're creating all this like cartoon propaganda aimed at children, I knew that poison was not coming anywhere near me or my family. Now, obviously I can't control my brother and his decisions, but the people that I could influence, I was very staunch in my position against it. And so that's a very useful heuristic, right? You don't need to go and read 1,000 pages of scientific research or whatever biomolecular chemical biology papers, you know, RNA sequence, whatever. You don't need to know any of that. All you need to do is see how people are acting and use that as a heuristic to determine how you should act in response. And so you asked me about wisdom. I'm not claiming that these things are wisdom per se, but man, it's so much data compressed in such small little rules of thumb or heuristics. And those are just two that I can think of, but Bitcoin's given me a lot of them.
I want to double down on that because we talked before about what Bitcoin fixes, and we talked about. I think he basically said like something with Bitcoin fixing, and I said like I don't believe that Bitcoin fixes everything, and I kind of concluded to. I think that Bitcoin fixes the incentives, and when incentives are fixed, everything else kind of comes downstream from that. How do you look at the meme that Bitcoin fixes everything? And the incentive that Bitcoin gives versus kind of fiat?
Well, I think about the incentive structure a lot. And I do think that, I mean, it is hyperbolic, but I do think that Bitcoin does have an effect on everything because all of the human action is downstream of the incentives. And so if you can fix the incentive structure, you're effectively imposing a new rule set that everybody has to adhere to, and you're no longer able to game the system. And I think that does quite literally change pretty much how we operate on every level.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, right? I think it remains to be seen. We have some historical allegories, but nothing like Bitcoin per se. I think one of the most interesting aspects of Bitcoin is just exploring the logic of violence or the economics of violence or force and how Bitcoin fundamentally alters that calculus, right? If you can't, all of a sudden if everyone in the world has their purchasing power in Bitcoin in a multi-sig, well then coercion, violence, theft, like none of these things will really work, or they won't, shouldn't say they won't work. You can still do them, but there's no financial gain to be had on the other side of it, right? And this works at every scale, right? Could be the individual. Someone's going to break into your house. Give me what's in the safe. And you go to the safe like there's nothing there. It's like, okay, you got me. Here it is. This also works at like a nation state level, right? Where one country invades another. The example I always cite is when Germany invaded Poland. Once they conquered Poland, the first place they go is the central bank and they raid their gold, right? It's the first thing they do because war is expensive and you got to pay for it. Rerun that scenario if Poland had all their reserve assets in a Bitcoin multi-sig. Germany would go in there, blow them up, conquer them, go to the central bank. There's nothing there to take. And Germany would be done. Like, well, fuck, we're broke. So I guess that was the end of that. So the idea of Bitcoin being this fundamental overhaul of the incentives related to violence and cooperation, I think is incredibly interesting. And I'm really excited to see where it takes us.
Dude, when I first heard your keynote on taking versus making, dude, you did a keynote on taking versus making, basically the incentive structure. If you have physical property, the incentive, if you don't give a fuck, is you want what somebody has, you just kill them, you get their stuff. Then that makes violence profitable. But if you want what somebody has and you kill them and you can't get it, then now you have to offer them some sort of deal. Hey, like you have something that I want. As they say on the streets, you got to come correct. You need to offer me up a deal that I want, and then I'll give you some of what I have. Otherwise, you could kick rocks. You kill me, you don't get my shit. That is such a monumentally big deal and has probably enormous implications on the future of our civilization.
Incentivizing the creation and not the destruction of things.
Yeah, if you want something, you got to make it.
Yeah, so you could summarize it. I mean, you got to think about it a little bit, but you could summarize it by saying it's lowering the profitability of coercion or increasing the profitability of consent and or cooperation. And people being incentive responsive creatures, we basically will do whatever is profitable regardless of its moral quality. Not all of us, but someone, right? People are opportunistic. There's people that will sell your organs on the black market, right? You go to sleep in the wrong place, you're gonna wake up without a kidney, like that type of shit. Bitcoin, by like removing the opportunity for physically seizing purchasing power, is a big deal. That's a really, really, really big deal. If you are ever a person, a business, or a nation that wants to protect yourself from theft, which is to say you want to survive, then you're gonna need something, I don't even want to say something like this, you're gonna need Bitcoin, basically, to preserve your purchasing power in something that cannot be seized by force. It's a matter of optimizing survivability. And that's why this whole thing is so Darwinian. People are like, oh, what do you just stack gold and use dollars and I don't need this. It's like, no. I love the analogy to gunpowder. It's like, if you don't adopt the gunpowder, then your opponent adopts the gunpowder and you get conquered. So it's a natural selection process. You can't opt out of it. You can't be like, oh no, I don't believe in gunpowder, leave me alone. It's like, you're done. As soon as someone shows up with gunpowder and you have swords, you're toast, right? So if you have any store of value asset other than Bitcoin, you're going to get outcompeted by people that held savings in a fixed supply of money. And that's just it. It's as simple as that. So, get on the train or get hit by the train.
I love that.
Yeah, and that understanding has actually helped me become very positive about our civilization and the world that we live in. I feel like we had the BB world before Bitcoin. From all of known history, since the beginning of time to 2009, the incentive was to violence. So that means that if you're not willing to coerce or take from somebody, you're at a game theoretic disadvantage in the marketplace. Now that mode of action will not yield what it used to, and now you need to do something that is consensual. You need to offer up something that somebody actually wants if you want what they have. And so in some ways, we live in a fundamentally different reality than we did pre-2009.
It's like a fork in the road of human civilization where after that, nothing will ever be the same because the idea and Bitcoin is out now and you can't do anything against that now.
There's nothing more unstoppable than an idea whose time has come, as has been said.
Yeah, I love that theme so much. It's because it's in the beginning you try to orange pill everyone and you try to get your uncle and your sister and everyone in there, and I reached, I think, the last 1-2 years, especially with the podcast, I reached a point where I'm like, I know Bitcoin is a natural force. And I try to get my loved ones in. I try to get the people that I care about into Bitcoin, not for me, but for them. But if I fail, I cannot keep trying. At some point, you have to say it's natural selection.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's a harsh realization, but it's not your responsibility ultimately. Because there's another core lesson in Bitcoin is that we all own ourselves. We're all in charge of our actions, our choices. And so, as they say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
How was it actually for you, 9 years and being in an environment where I guess not everyone was for Bitcoin and with your smart money that you also said before, was there a filtering process that was going on with the people that you spent most time with?
Well, I'm quite introverted and I love to read. So, and my daughter was being born and was young at this time. So I had a lot of time, with a young child, which also keeps you pretty at home. Thank God for all the people that wrote really compelling early Bitcoin stuff.
The first thing that every Bitcoiner does, and the most important activity that every Bitcoiner keeps on doing, is buying Bitcoin. And I personally use Relay to buy and sometimes also spend or sell my Bitcoin. And there are two main reasons why I do so. The first one is it's Bitcoin only. They do not do any shit coins. They do not do any cryptos, any stocks or anything else. This is a tool, an app that is fully focused only and solely on Bitcoin. The second one is self-custody. They give you the keys to your Bitcoin the moment you buy them. You never give them the control over your Bitcoin, and you don't have to trust them because you can verify that you and only you have the keys to your Bitcoin. There's no third-party risk. There's no freezing of your assets. There's no rug pulling. There's nothing of that. Download Relay, the app, on your phone, or go to relay.app on your browser and use code Robin to save fees and get cheaper Bitcoin. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called micro seed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With micro seed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a one 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because MicroSeed is not selling the washer. MicroSeed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io.